What's up, everybody? I know it's been a while, but I'm finally back with a new video. And today we're going to be doing a coaching session with Thriving, who is a 5.2k Zerg player on the European ladder. And the idea for this video is to have it be like a series where we're going to continuously track Thriving's progress. And we're going to be doing these sessions maybe once or twice a month, depending on how he is adapting to the coaching and so on. Fair warning, the first video here is going to be a bit longer than we planned. But I'm going to do my best to timestamp it for you guys so it will be easier to watch. And yeah, we're going to make sure that the future videos are a little bit shorter than this for sure. So yeah, please like and subscribe the video and let me know what you guys think about this format and this series, and if it's something you want to see more of, and I'll be happy to read your comments. Okay, so we're going to be doing a coaching session today with Mr. Thriving. So just first off, like, I just want to talk to you and see like what you want to focus on a little bit more, because I know like you have a very unique style, right? And I don't necessarily want to like push you into playing in any certain way. It's all up to you. So if you just want to focus on like general improvements and learning new tools to make your current play style better, that's what we're gonna do. Or if you want to like take your gameplay in a different direction, we can work on that as well. I just want to hear some of your thoughts and like what your focus is.
I mean, I'll probably have more fun and enjoy it more if I get to play my weird shit.
Yeah.
So if there's any way you feel like you'll be able to help me with, improving that or improving things that will help me be better, even if I play in a way that's not, optimal. Because I'm never gonna be above 6K, but if I get to above like 5.4 or 5.5, just a little bit of improvement, still doing the weird thing that I do, that I would be very happy.
All right. Yeah, like definitely like a lot of things we can look at and focus on to help you improve your current play. But obviously, like you said, like with the disclaimer that without changing your play style, you are gonna run into like a wall at some point. But we can do a
Yeah.
lot of things to like move that wall forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'll just
All
talk
right.
about some of my hotkeys, and you can like interject with whatever opinion you have about it and whatever you're doing as well. So the first thing I think that's like super good to have for any Zerg player is the multiple larva selection. So if you're looking at my stream right now, you can see that I basically have like 10 different hotkeys for select larva, which basically means that I don't need to press SD to make drones. I just hold down the D key on the hatchery, right? And it spans the larva into drones. And same for whatever unit I want to make, like lings, overlords, roaches, whatever.
I see.
So I think this is super useful, I think, especially in the early game. Because in the early game, it's super important that you don't float your larva, right? Like you want to make your drones as fast as possible. And this is a small thing that makes it easier to like spend your larva while there's other things going on, right? So this is like one thing I would highly recommend to incorporate into your hotkeys.
Yeah, and I don't even think that wouldn't be that hard to change, right? Because I'm pressing SD anyway.
Yeah.
If I get used to just pressing D, like sure, maybe sometimes I'll press S unnecessarily, but
Yeah, you can still keep the S
yeah.
exactly. So you'll still build it. It's like you'll be wasting an action, but
Yeah.
you can have both.
Yeah.
So that works fine. So you just all you have to do is the same way you set rapid fire is you add an alternative hotkey and then you go into the hotkey file and then you just add the letters manually.
Yeah.
Okay. Other than that, I highly recommend, if you don't have it already, having burrow and unburrow on two different hotkeys.
I do. I didn't
That's really
have
good.
that in Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm. I don't even think you could. But now that I started playing again in 2023, like early 2023, late 22, I just kept it like that because I didn't think you could change it back. I got used to it. So now it's good.
Yeah, I have the same for spine crawlers and spore crawlers. I have different hotkeys for burrow and unburrow for the same reason as I would
Yeah,
have
yeah.
with the burrow units, because you don't want to you want to be sure that what you're doing is unburrowing and not burrowing, right? Because sometimes there's like the delay when you're unburrowing and you're just spamming the same key and then they burrow unburrow, right? So you just want to make sure that when you can spam the keys without feeling any like risk of doing any mistakes with that.
Yeah, that one I
Um,
have, so that feels good.
All right. So personally, like hotkey wise, this is how I use it. So I have W as 8. F12 is actually my caps lock. It's rebound to this, and this is the tilde key right to the left of 1. Obviously,
Yeah.
here you should do whatever you feel most comfortable with. I think caps lock is a really great hotkey to use because it's
Yeah,
right
I
there,
have
right
a hard
next.
time getting used to caps lock. I've tried it, but I
Mhm.
have up to 7 like you do, and then I have middle mouse button, forward mouse, and space.
Okay. Do you use drag scroll? I thought I saw you use
Yeah.
drag scroll when you were playing. Yeah, you do, right? So you have it on like mouse 4, mouse 5, I guess. The drag scroll.
Yeah, mouse forward.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good habit to have. It saves so much like time when you're like moving your screen around to use the drag scroll instead of just edge panning. So it's
Yeah.
something that very few players use outside of the very top, but it's super good. But you play Dota,
It's
right? And I think it's way more common in Dota.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
I was tryharding Dota and I got used to it.
yeah. That's a good habit from Dota for sure. But yeah, caps lock I highly recommend. Here I have kind of reversed it, so my add to control group is Alt, and my steal control group is Shift. This is obviously up to you, whatever you
I
feel like is more comfortable.
Yeah, I completely removed add, and I only have steal on shift.
Okay, that works as well. I think the only time really when I want to use add instead of steal is when I am playing CVT, because then I want my banelings on my main army group, but I also want them on a separate group.
Yeah, I had that
Also,
problem when I do play Bane, but I just instead create a control group because my create isn't steal.
oh, okay,
So I'll
yeah, that makes
create
sense.
a number 2 and still have it on 1.
Okay, yeah, that works just as fine, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend also just having the inject queens on a hotkey, just because it's really useful in situations where you're getting dropped or you're getting all in, then you need to quickly pull your queens to the front. So yeah, just in general, like, having a hotkey for inject queens is super useful if you don't have it already.
I do, but the thing is I just have one hotkey for all of my queens and I bring them out and then I will select them and I will press Control ZXZ, which is like my backspace inject. I
Oh,
just
okay.
spam 4 buttons and they will go back to the hatcheries and inject or whatever is closest, right?
Okay.
Which is not great.
Yeah, I think like you definitely need to have like at least 2 control groups for your queens at the very minimum.
Yeah.
I think 3 is good, but at the very least 2. The early game especially gets very difficult if you're not doing that. Even if you're playing your quirky style with like a lot of units in the early game and stuff, you're still gonna be relying on queens a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
So
If there's a panic
sure.
moment, I die because I mismanage my queens a lot. I know it happens too.
Yeah. So basically, like what I do, like I have my one or two control groups with my creep squad queens, and then I have my inject queens, and then whenever I need to, I can just quickly add my inject queens to my creep queens, right? And they become just a fighting group, basically.
Yeah, and then you make new
Uh,
ones. Yeah.
Yeah, usually you make new ones in those situations. If you can't afford it, then you can't afford it, right? But usually in all these situations, making extra queens is quite good. Yeah, so rapid fire, maybe we could talk a little bit about rapid fire, actually. Corrosive bile, obviously,
I do
very
have that.
important. Yeah. Corrosive bile, for sure. I think it's the big one. Oops. Another useful one is consume, blinding cloud. Not blinding cloud, abduct. I mean, blinding cloud. I have it, but it's just because I have a rapid fire inject, right? So it's the same hotkey for me as blinding cloud. So you don't necessarily want
Yeah.
it on blinding cloud, but it's doesn't really matter too much. The caustic spray for grappers is also very useful.
Yep, I have it on all of those.
Nice. Infestors, neuroparasite, very useful.
Yeah.
Anything else? Queens, I have it on all 3 queen spells.
Yeah, me too, I think.
Also, one other thing is also rapid fire for burrow on your spores and spines. That makes repositioning spores and spines a lot smoother.
Mm.
Where you basically just
I
like from
think-
Y, right? So I can just hold down Shift Y and just move my mouse around and it'll root down all my spores. Most of them. Usually like 1 or 2 won't get rooted, but it's still a lot faster than doing
Yeah.
it manually.
I have the same hotkey on Parabomb as I do on Burrow, on R, and I don't want my Parabomb, I think, on Rapid Fire because I'll just send too many on the same unit. So that's why I don't have it on my Spores and Spines, but maybe I
Okay.
could change that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very useful. It depends. Like if you're not playing a lot of late games, isn't that relevant anyways, right? But in late game, it becomes quite useful. It's something you can judge for yourself if you want to use or not. Yeah, I think that's it. Changeling I have as well. But it's also like also just a late game thing, right? Because you're spamming changelings in the late game mostly.
Yeah, yeah, I do have it on all of those. The only thing I don't is the Burrow, and maybe I'll change that.
All right. Some things to consider at least.
Yeah, but the larva thing, I'll definitely.
Yeah, I think it's super useful. All right. So any other settings we should look at? Probably not. I don't think. XP is very useful if you're not using it already.
Yeah, I started after I saw it on stream that they knew what died in fog.
Yeah, exactly. So it's usually like when you have Ravagers, right? And you're like throwing corrosive biles, because usually a lot of the times you won't stick around to see, right? Or
Yeah,
if you're like you didn't look at the fight and then you look back and you can see that, oh, I killed a bunch of units with my last banelings, or your queens get the last shot on the oracle and the oracle dies in the fog. That sort of scenarios is quite useful. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's get into the replays.
whenever Protoss do weird things,
Yeah.
I just basically I don't know how to scout it. I think they're going to attack me at any point, basically. Lobby host, there you go.
All right, there we go. Okay. We'll have a look. There's a lot of the CVP scouting happens like in the very early game, and usually like there's some very like clear branches from where they're gonna go. But yeah, they can play in some weird ways, but usually those scenarios you can get away with more greed than normal.
Yeah, I think I do the opposite of greed. I just make links because I'm scared.
Yeah, that's a very common problem I think for anybody like below top GM or like top 100 GM. I would say is that they often just don't spend their larva fast enough because they're scared, and then worse, even like make more units than they need because they're scared, which is, as Zerg especially, it's really bad, right? Because Zerg gets a lot of their advantage from like walking the line between death and sort of barely surviving. So you can get out as many drones as possible. All right, 14 hatch. I think it's okay. I play it also as well in this matchup, so don't mind that.
Yeah, this was the Overlord before 14 hatch.
Yeah, I think this is quite decent on some of these maps. Okay, one thing I've seen in your stream as well, and like I see now as well when you're moving around, is you don't seem to use your camera hotkeys very much.
No, I usually like even when I inject, I just drag scroll through my bases. I unbound my drag scroll. Like I literally could not move my screen unless I clicked on the minimap or used camera hotkeys for almost a week. And I used it a little bit more, but I'm still learning.
Yeah, for sure. That's like something that, like in terms of just injecting and like defending and transferring workers around, it's something you should put a lot of attention to improving, because it's gonna save you so much time here. Okay, let's see what you did here in the early game. Break it down a little bit. But yeah, camera hotkeys are super important. You definitely should work on that because it's gonna save up so much time for you to do whatever you want to do otherwise, right? Throughout the game. It's also something that's gonna make, like, when messy scenarios happen, getting better at this is gonna make you feel more confident in like spending time doing injects and stuff like that, right? If you have a faster way of doing it, or if you're more comfortable just spamming your camera hotkeys. All right, so first thing when we're to scouts, this map can be a little bit tricky just because there's no high ground vision. But I always want to stay with my Overlord at least to see what the first couple of things out of the gateways are. So you want to see if there's a Chrono Boost, and you want to see if there's a Warp Gate starting. Those are like the first two big tiles here in the early game. So this Overlord, if you want to just go straight behind, that's kind of okay, but I would at least like wait a couple of seconds, like until like 220 at least, I would say. just to see the very first units at least. Like I prefer just keeping it here until I see like the second unit starting and a second unit coming out. But again, this map, it can be a little bit tricky just because of if they open Stalker first, you risk losing your Overlord.
Yeah, usually I stick around to see if they get to adapt. But this map, I've just died to Stalker too many times.
One thing that I like to use is like if you put your Overlord right here where I'm looking.
You can
kind of go like this if the Stalker comes out, and if the Stalker goes around on the outside tries to hit, you can go like this, right? So if you're on top of your Overlord mech, you can usually survive and get into this corner here. Or if you want to be even like safer, you just put your Overlord like over here. If you're looking on the stream.
Yeah, and retreat to the other high ground.
Yeah, and retreat to this one. That's another way, because I think this is more consistent. Because a lot of times when you do this, and let's say the pylon isn't here, the pylon is like over here. Getting any sort of relevant scout is pretty much impossible, and now you've put yourself in the dark for like a lot of the early game, which is leading you to like feeling forced to make more units than you actually need to here.
Yeah, and if I have it in the front, I'll see stuff leaving and stuff too, so it's just more info probably.
Yeah, so like the main thing you just want to see here is a Stalker and an Adept takes 30 seconds each, right, to build. With Chrono Boost, it's 20 seconds. So all you do here is you look at the timer. Usually the standard time, if they go 20 Cyber Core, this core will finish at like 209. If they go 21 Cyber Core, this will finish at 212 usually. If they go like core before Nexus, it will finish even earlier, like 203, 204, I want to say. But anyways, you look at that, and then you just see it's 212. You see that they start a unit, and you see Chrono Boost. Now you know in 20 seconds a unit will pop out from this gateway. And on most maps, you do want to see what that unit is, right? So you just make that note for yourself. In 20 seconds, you want to look back here. So at 35 seconds, you want to be looking at their Overlord again to see what comes out. And then you react after that, right? So again here, like if I was scouting this and I saw no Chrono Boost, in this case he's Chrono Boosting, but if he wasn't Chrono Boosting, I would only make one pair of links. Because without the Chrono Boost, the Adept can't get across the map in time to block your third, if he pile blocks or anything like that. So you only need 2 links to chase away the probe. In this case, I'm not sure if you saw the probe or if you just didn't scout. Okay, you just didn't scout. If you're aware that you didn't scout and like there's no probe on your side of the map, then like you're doing here, completely skipping links is completely fine. As well.
Yeah, I saw he didn't scout at all. He was just and that's why I started getting more scared. The less they scout, the more scared I am. It's like he's already planning to kill me.
A lot of Protoss players will play like this for sure. So here, you will go for 4 queens before third hatch. I think this is most of the time gonna be a mistake. I would only ever do this if you're playing like versus 2 gate before Nexus or something like that.
Okay.
I think you should always get the third hatch before the third queen. And then you, again, like based off your scouting, like if you're seeing double Chrono Boost and the first unit is an Adept, then I would just, immediately after the third hatch, I would start my third queen. If I don't see a second Chrono Boost on the gateway, I would just make an Overlord at 31 and then make the queen afterwards.
Alright. Yeah, I probably should, because even if I do this, sometimes I'll lose 5 workers to 2 Adepts anyway.
Yeah. And like the way you also want to count is just like you just want to make 4 links per Adept. And usually you don't want to make the links until you see the Adept actually shading out. So if he's just making an Adept and you're sitting here at home with it, you don't even make any links. Like you wait with making the links until he shades out. Obviously, like in those standard games, you always need at least 2 links, right, to be able to chase away the probe. If it's a Chrono Boost on the first unit, you need 4 links so you can secure your third base before the Adept gets there. Yeah, those are the things you need to think about here. Because now you end up making like 6 links here. You start with 4 initially, and then I think you make 2 more. Yeah, which is more than you need at this point. Since you made a sentry, right? You could have gotten away with even like 2 links in this scenario, since it's not moving out to the Adept.
Yeah.
But like 4 would have been acceptable as well, I think. But yeah. Also, I would never do tumor in the main first. As a general rule, like in every matchup, you want to get your creeps going toward their base or like towards. Like obviously it depends on the matchup and the map a little bit, but like sometimes it's most crucial to get the creep in front of your fourth base. Sometimes you just want to get it out on the map as far as possible. But in almost every case, you want to get it towards your opponent's side of the map, right? And this tumor,
Yeah,
you're
usually I
doing in the
do
main
put
base?
it there.
Okay.
Usually I put it there. It's like sometimes just ape brain kicks in and I inject as soon as the queen pops, and then like, oh, well.
But it would still be more worth it then to just walk this queen down and put the tumor here with the main queen, and then
Oh, okay.
go back up, for sure. Because like this doesn't really like you can do this like 2 minutes from now, and it won't really change anything, right? But you not having a creep tumor in the front here makes it so your creep spread is just delayed for the rest of the game, right? You're one tumor behind for the rest of the game. And it's also making so if he does some sort of a depth pressure, you've missed your timing to get this tumor down, right? So now if an adept shows up, suddenly he can snipe the tumor really easily because it's still quite a ways away from speed. So yeah, for sure, always go for the tumor at the front 100% of the times. Alright, so yeah, like when we talked about this overlord, you don't really get much information here from it. Which
Yeah, basically nothing.
well, you see that it's not a Stargate here or here. That's about it. But when you see the sentry, at least you get some information, right? Because if you see the sentry, this can't be any like, it can't be Robo and DT. It can't be a Stargate or anything like that, right? It could be DT without Robo, but that would be less likely. So another thing, like a good habit you should get into, is if you're not getting a depth pressure at all. Obviously, like all of this just goes back to you're not having this overlord seeing here. But if you're not getting a depth pressure at all, sending 2 of your first links around the map to scout for proxies is really good, and then you just park them at the third base. Because then you've like secured that there's nothing on the map, and you know you just need to see what's in his base to find out what's going on, right? Because here in theory, like he could have a pylon down here making a Twilight Council or something like that, right? So even if you sack this overlord later on and you just see nothing, then you're still not really sure what's going on. But if you scouted the map, you know there's no proxies, then you know like whatever he has to be somewhere in this space. Yeah, fast to third would have been good for sure. Yeah, now this overlord just doesn't do much for you, right? But
Yeah,
the way you get information past the early game here is like just being active with links, and you're doing that now, which is good. So it's like as soon as you have link speed, that's also another reason why the overlord at the front is so useful, is that you can know if his adepts are out on the map or not. Like if you see these 2 adepts here, you know he's not out here hiding with the adepts. So that means you can move out with your links and try to snipe a probe, get your scouting information. If you don't know where the adepts are, you keep your links at home and you send like 1 or 2 links across to scout.
Yeah.
Because you basically, like, if you don't know where the adepts are, you always need to have your links at home. Because getting caught out without any links in your base and like 2 adepts shaded into your natural, it's yeah, it's gonna be rough. At the very least, like you're gonna be forced off mining for a really long time. So whenever you don't know where his adepts are, you always need to have your links at home. Unless you're like all inning or something, then obviously it's different. Because then you're making units at home, but right now you're just making drones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a big
I think when I saw the sentry, I was thinking he was gonna try to turtle up and like take an unreasonably fast third. I thought he might be doing it. I wasn't sure, and then I see it and I get angry, and I think I make like 20 links.
Yeah, so usually this is like too late of a response, right? If you like saw the probe moving out and like you managed to delay the third a little bit, and then you're pulling up links behind it, and then you can jump on him like right after he takes the third, then it's good. But now it's kind of too late, right? The battery is coming in, the pylon is already up, he can warp in more if he needs to. He has somewhat of a choke here, right, as well.
Yeah, I mean, all of this should have been drones, and like in retrospect, I think I know that. I feel like if I did what you said, where I got the info better with a couple of links around the map, This could have been done without the battery, right?
Yeah, for sure. The problem is also like your lack of information a bit as well, right? Because you don't know what it could be a Stargate, and if it's just like a late Stargate when an Oracle shows up, it's annoying, right? But again, you did see the sentry,
Yeah.
so the Stargate is less likely. But again, like these Protoss players will have weird ass builds for sure. Poking the front is really useful as well. Just to see, like, a lot of times they'll build their tech in the front here, like he's doing, so you can just run up and see what he's doing.
Yeah.
Other times, just checking if he's warping in is another big tell, because usually if they're not doing any sort of like pressure build, they don't really want to be warping in. They want to like get their tech out faster, right? Like add gateways. But if they're like constantly warping in of these two gateways, then it's more likely he's gonna do like some sort of adept pressure, or he's saving up for a weird sellout timing or something like that, right? And usually you can also see, like, if you see he's warping in here, you can just check the third. You can check here. Okay, where are the units? Why isn't he showing the units? That means he's probably like just hiding them for some reason, or he's already out on the map with a prism or something. So it's a good thing to keep tabs of. Keeping tabs of the cyber core, checking for +1 era weapons, like seeing if it's spinning again. So something that's super useful. So in general, just like being active.
Oh yeah, if
links
it's
in the
spinning
front.
later.
Yeah, after warp kit is done, it's spinning, and then yeah.
Especially someone who's turtling weird like this, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, some general macro issues for sure with your injects, right?
Yep.
Because at this point in the game, like even though you made all these links, you should be able to have a much higher drone count, and ideally, like your fourth should be starting right about now. Because you've had like no pressure on you whatsoever, right? There's been no Oracle harass, there's been no Adept harass. So in a game like this, you really wanna, like, if you're not all-in, you wanna be able to have a really good economy at this stage in the game when nothing has happened. Even if you're planning on hitting a timing later, you wanna get your drones out nice and early so you can have more units for when you wanna hit your timing, right?
Yeah. Like looking back, I'm floating so much, right? I could have probably, because what I felt like I needed was more info too. And if I just used my money, I could have had overload speed, or I could have gotten the info I needed. I could have seen the late Twilight Council and not been scared and had 15. But I just didn't get angry at this third and focused on my macro.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah.
that's my biggest downfall.
Yeah, so there's supply blocks, and there's also like floating larva, right? And then you end up spending that larva into more links as well, which is also a problem. And also this whole time, I've been looking at your camera now for, let's see. Okay, like, you need to have a setup so you feel confident going back to inject while you're doing this.
Yeah.
Like right now, you should be able to just like, it should take you like no more than like a second to just go back and inject your 3 bases and then look back at this, right?
Yeah.
Because it's been like a solid 25 seconds of you just looking at these units.
Yeah, tunnel vision, big time.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think that's mostly just like having a comfortable setup, right? And a good muscle memory. Like you just get a good muscle memory by being very consequential with yourself, right? Forcing yourself to acknowledge these errors and being very methodical in fixing them, right? So you should have like your like grained in macro cycle where you're doing certain things in a certain order, right? So like when I inject, my macro cycle is like I inject and I always start with my main base. So I go F1, F2, F3. Now I can't use camera because it's on a replay, right? But F1, F2, F3.
I think you can set them in a replay, can't you?
Can I? Let me try.
Yeah, I think so.
That's wait. Maybe I have to go everyone. No, it doesn't seem to work.
It doesn't?
Oh,
No.
does it? Wait. Okay, yeah, it does actually.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Today I learned. Oh, yeah, so anyways, like I would go F1, F2, F3, inject, and then I would spread creep, build overlords if I need to, and then spend my larva.
Yeah.
And like ideally your larva
Yeah,
you want to be spending non-stop, right? But those three, like
exactly.
inject, creep spread, and overlords, should be like a cycle you do like at least every 30 seconds, but ideally more often, right?
Yeah. That doesn't exist. Like I don't have that. I don't have a like a muscle memory for it, or a cycle that exists, where it should be cemented in my spine.
Yeah.
So that maybe that's what I should work on the most.
Yeah, for sure. That's something like you just have to like actively think about it at first and force yourself to do it. I think a great way, like something that I used to do a lot and I still do like sometimes before, well, rarely when I play tournaments these days, is to like going versus the AI and just like do your build order and focus on your macro cycle. Or you can even have like a replay saved where you just like you have your 3 bases set up or whatever, and you just resume from replay and you just spend like 5 minutes just injecting and spreading creep and making overlords and spending your larva.
Yeah.
Just doing that for like 5 minutes. I
And
think
it
stuff like that
works.
is like deliberative practice is really good for that. Those sort of things.
Yeah, I think maybe I should just unbind my camera drag key again so I can't micro my units. I actually gained MMR when I unbound it. Like no joke, because my macro got better. I looked at
Yeah.
SC2 replay stats and like the macro stats just because I couldn't do anything but macro.
That's what I had to do when I started using drag scroll, because I was using edge panning first, right? And when I
Yeah.
wanted to start using drag scroll, I kept edge panning. So what I did is just I set the mouse scroll speed to 0, or and I disabled mouse scroll, probably is what I did.
Just disable, yeah.
Yeah, and then then I can only use drag scroll to move the screen, right? It's kind of how you have to do it at first. Like you have to like force yourself until you have built up the muscle memory, and then you can bring it back. But like these days, I could disable this again, to be honest, because I never use it anymore. It seems so useless now that I use drag scroll. I don't really know any scenario where
Yes.
like I want to use it. The only time
Same.
would be like if like something is happening, like something is happening over here on this screen, and I don't have the time to like do this, like to go to the queens with the scroll, and I just want to do this, and maybe then I would like to move the screen a little bit, but it's even just doing this feels bad. Because for me now, just having the cursor at the middle of the screen at all times just feels so natural.
Yeah.
So for sure, it's probably something that you should try to find a way to force yourself to create this muscle memory of a cycle. I know some people had like at the early days of StarCraft 2, some people made like timers. So like every, what is it, like 25 seconds, right? 29 seconds. Or like every 30 seconds it would just go off and you have to go back and inject. But back then, like it was
I
more
had that
like you
in
couldn't
Wings of
stack
Liberty.
in. Yeah. Like you couldn't stack injects back then, right? So you got way more punished for actually missing injects, but it's still, the timing is still the same, right? You don't actually, like stacking an injects don't give you more larva, it makes it more forgiving for the next one. But you never get back that larva you missed by having idle time on the hatchery, right?
Yeah, and I mean, as much as it's nice, like in the late game, to stack injects like that, if you have high energy queens walking around, in the early game, as you said, that's when it matters, right?
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's keep looking at this game. So obviously you're playing from a very behind position right now. And I would say going into like Mastling Bane in this position is probably not a good idea, because Mastling Bane is something you would do to like punish somebody who is playing either like pure Sky Tossed, and you can like play Mastling Bane and like try to, like let's say he goes like 2-star Phoenix, and you're playing Mastling Bane, he won't have enough Phoenix to lift everything, right? So you can play like Mastling Bane and put pressure on his third. But that requires you to know exactly that it's 2-star Phoenix and not like 2-star Carry or something like that. The only thing I think is good versus is like the Mass Gateway styles, where they play like Mass Stalker or Mass Zealots. But this guy is already like making Robo, has a Sentry. He's only on 3 gas, which is kind of weird, but he's also floating 500 gas, so I guess he just took them super early or something. But anyways, like versus a style like this, you kind of need to play either Roaches or Hydras. I always prefer Roaches because Hydras are kind of not that good in this matchup, in my opinion. Unless you're making Lurkers.
Yeah, they kind of melt.
Yeah.
I do realize I can't play Ling here, and I even considered canceling my upgrade, but it was almost done, so I don't. And
yeah,
I
like I think like having Ling Bane part
Lurkers.
of your composition is good, right? But you need like Roaches in here as well, especially like if they're playing Sentry heavy, you need Ravagers, right? The good thing about like him not playing Stargate is that it allows you to make a lot of Ravagers. Like Ravagers are actually quite good in this matchup, but usually you're not allowed to make them because the Protoss has like 3 Oracles running around, right? And they kill the Ravagers super fast and they're expensive. So usually you don't see Zerg going for Ravagers when the Protoss is playing, or when the Protoss open a Stargate. But if the guy plays ground, and you have the money for it, being able to go into Ravager is super nice because it makes your ground army way more potent.
Yeah, I mean, I throw this game super hard later. I don't know if we gotta watch it, but I just knew the early game was complete garbage. That's mostly what I wanted to look at. If you want, we can see the epic fail later. But yeah,
We can look a little bit
I
more,
do have
for
some
sure.
others if you want to look at some more.
Yeah, we will look a little bit more at this one, and then we can jump to the next one. Another thing that's good to build a habit of is just overlord spread. So in this game, again, there's no Stargate, so you should be able to have like a lot more overlords around your base.
Yeah.
So another habit you want to build is just every time you make an overlord, you want to be rallying it somewhere. So like you just in the moment, like when I make an overlord, usually it's what like I'll be looking here, and then I make overlord, and then I rally it here.
Yeah. Yeah, usually I rally them and hotkey them so that I can quickly pull them back if I see a void ray later.
Yeah, you do actually. That's good. Yeah.
But that's like one of the things that disappear the fastest when I'm not feeling at my best. Like I'll prioritize other things.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. But I think like this, like you work on these muscle memory things and build up these habits. Then once everything starts coming together, you should be able to see a quite like big increase in your skill. Just because right now it seems like you're spending a lot of or you're losing a lot of efficiency because you're missing out on the index, right? You're missing out on having good vision, the scouting, those sort of things. And they're like quite easy to fix. They just take a lot of practice, right? They're easy in that sense. They're not complicated issues. They're just issues that take some work to fix.
Yeah, mindful grinding.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, that's also another thing you can practice versus like in single player versus the AI, right? Like when you're doing your build or whatever, you just make sure that your overlord are going where you need to. And it's nice to do this versus the AI just because you build up a sense of how the game should flow and like how the game should feel when the game is going your way, right? When you're not getting harassed, when you're not getting punished. Because that will translate into normal games as well, where like you'll have a better idea of where you're at in the game if you have a good sense of like, okay, if nothing went wrong, this is where I should be at, right? So building up that sort of like game sense is also very important, I think, because that gives you a lot of good game sense and understanding of like when you need to attack and like when you need to take risks to come back and stuff like that, right?
I do have another ZVP where I do feel a little better, but this is kind of like a lot of how my early games go.
Yeah, but this is good because we can identify issues that are like occurring from games to games, and we can narrow down what we need to focus on, right?
Yeah.
Like ideally, to start, we want to be finding like the big money issues that have to cause the most harm to your game, right? Not so much there's like some small details that matter a lot, but for a lot of part, like I'm not going super in depth into like mid game scouting or like timings of like, oh, you need to make your watch horn at this time to be safe versus this and so on. It's just those sort of things tend to matter a lot less than the big picture stuff, right? It's good if we can identify patterns of things you're doing wrong, so we can tackle the biggest one first and then work our way down the list as we go on. Yeah, 15 hatch, this is also okay, I think. I've actually been preferring the 14 hatch a lot in this matchup. Just feels like when you're playing 15 hatch, unless you're doing something like kind of all in E, you have to delay your speed quite a bit to make the 15 hatch worth it. And
yeah, that's why I've been doing the 4 queens, because I know my speed is late. And that's why I delay my third. So probably it's better if I... When do you take your speed when you do the 14 thing? Like, you do like a 17 gas, 16 pool or something?
So I've been messing around a little bit with it, but what I ended up doing is just like I just do 14 hatch, 18 gas, 17 pool. So it's like the normal 16 hatch opener, but just like everything is just like a second or two delayed, basically.
Okay, yeah, I see.
And you kind of make up for it down the line because you get the larva from the natural a little bit earlier than normal, right? So you get like an extra larva out of it. But you end up losing a larva because you have to float 3 larva to like make the hatchery, right? So it's a give and take.
Yeah, you're
you
paying
get it natural, right?
to get it on your nat, yeah.
Yeah. this nitpicky stuff is like this drone micro is costing you a lot of minerals for sure. So like in the early game, it's really important that your drones stay 2 and 2 on each patch here. If they start running around like they do here, you lose so much money so fast, and it doesn't seem like it, but like when you actually like start to look at the numbers, you realize like how much money you're losing. Like every second a drone is running around like this is a second it's not mining, right? And the drones mine roughly 40 minerals per minute, I think it is. So it's a lot of minerals that goes away fast when multiple drones starts running around. It's like this guy starts running around.
Yeah.
And then this guy starts running
So it's
around.
probably better
this
to
guy starts
attack
running around.
the drone or a probe when he's doing this.
If he's like, what my rule of thumb is like if he is attacking from like an angle that's easy to attack, like let's say he's like doing it here, then I attack the probe. But I don't really want to be running around too far away, because if he has good micro, what he's gonna do, like he sees your drone coming, then he just runs away, and you waste the time. I want to make sure that I can at least hit the probe every time I go for the attack, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So that's another thing that I have rapid fired actually is gather on the drone. So whenever the guy is doing this to me, I just select my drone and I hold G for gather, and I just hold it on the mineral until the drone can start mining again.
Really have that.
Yeah, because having to like spam right click or something like that, like it's almost impossible to keep up if the guy has the rapid fire gather on his guy. Like he's just gonna block you forever if you do that for the most part.
Yeah.
It's a small detail here, but it does add up quite a bit. You can see like right now we have like 3 or 4 drones running around. It's a lot of minerals that are going to waste. That's also why it's usually like having 18 out of 16 is actually like slightly better, right, than 16 or 16. But it's only worth it if you're like actually making sure that no drones are running around when you're doing it. They have to be on the 2 far patches, and they have to be like perfectly stacked so no drones are running around. Otherwise, it's like all the benefits you get from the other 2 drones will disappear very fast.
Yeah.
Right. Again, 4 links here, definitely a mistake, since you're doing 15 hatch. One of the big benefits of doing 15 hatch like this is that you get to get an extra drone from this hatch, right? Because you get this hatchery so early, you have this larva early, getting a drone out here fast is one of the big benefits. And the tunnel lines up, so like you can use your first round of larva here to make drones. So like you would make drone, queen, and then you make the links afterwards. And you can still get the third down, or chase the probe away before the adept comes. Because your pool is earlier and your hatcheries are earlier, right? And then with a normal opener, so you have more time here. So these 4 links are costing you quite a bit here in the early game.
Yeah, I think this is a result of me being annoyed by his mineral micro. It's just it's by feel. I need to stop doing these things.
Yeah, so again, like here, you could start with just 2 links if you want, if that's the case, like just only 2 links to chase with the probe, and then until you see the chrono boost on the gateway, you stay on 2 probes or 2 links. And if you see a chrono boost on the gateways, then you make 2 more links right away. Again, same thing here. Like sure, like sometimes you might get good information with this overlord, but you're giving up a lot of guaranteed information at the front, right? Like the information you get at the front is like 100% guaranteed every time.
Whereas normally like, I'd put it on the high ground.
Yeah. So again, the things
I'm not entirely sure why I did this, but yeah, I think 9 out of 10 games I'll put it on the high ground.
Okay, that's good. Because yeah, we just want to see, is he getting warp gate? Sometimes they start it and then they cancel it. Just like if they're skipping warp gate, it's usually Stargate. Sometimes it's DT. It allows them to get a slightly faster Dark Shrine, but usually if you skip warp gates, it'll be Stargate. So gives us our information. And like we see this second chrono boost, then we would have started our 3rd queen earlier. Again, like here in this case, you're doing 4 queen before 3rd, which makes it really rough, because now you get into a scenario where like, how do you take your 3rd when there's going to be 2 adepts on your side of the map, right? Yeah. And let's say he moved up with his first adept, he could have denied your 3rd 100%. Like now you might get it down before the 2 adepts get here, but if his first adept shaded out, he will just be sitting there denying your 3rd, and you would have to wait until link speed really until you can take it.
Yeah, I've been abused by it. When I face like 5-5 and above Protosses, they abuse me doing that so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big thing. So that's also like the order in the front. Just keeping traps on the chrono boost, and just remember that the 10 or the 30 second it takes for to build a Star Chrono Adept, or 20 seconds with chrono boost, and you just keep that in your mind, like when you need to recheck the overlord to check the gateway, right, to see what comes out. A lot of the time you can just tell by looking at the minimap, even like if the adept shades out, you'll see like two dots, right, and then you know it's an adept even without looking at the overlord.
Yep.
But yeah, just seeing what comes out and then reactively making links is very good. It's like usually also, even at like to a really high level, a lot of the damage that happens to Zerg in the early game usually isn't direct damage, it's damage that you do to yourself while you're dealing with something. So a lot of the time, whenever we're dealing with something like this, our macro will slip, right? And it's not like with Protoss or Terran where we're like, can only make one worker at a time, right? So here we're floating 6 larvae for quite a while. And it might seem like pretty small, but every second that you're floating a larva and it's not being made into a drone, it's a second that a drone isn't mining, right? Which means you're gonna have less money down the line to make more drones with, and then it snowballs like that really fast. So Zerg's economy, more so than losing drones, not spending your larva is gonna be like the biggest weakness, I would say, in terms of like not getting your economy online. And this is like this problem goes like from, I would say, even from like my level, like I don't think I do it perfectly either, the spending larva part, all the way down. And it's by far I think the most common thing that has the biggest impact on the early game for Zerg in terms of like how much money you can get is just not spending your larva right away. So very important that you spend it right away and that you make sure that they're rallied properly.
Yeah, and if I have those drones earlier, they could have mined enough to make the 5 drone deaths feel less too, right? Because I might lose those anyway.
Yeah, so like a lot of time for like it's a snowball effect, right? Let's say like your drones were like 4 seconds late, so now your next queen or your next spore is 4 seconds late, and the oracle showed up just in time to kill an extra 3 drones, and like it has that snowball effect, right? Where everything is slightly delayed, and yeah, now you're struggling because of it, and you get more and more delayed. So spending the larva is so important. That's also why I really like recommend the select larva thing, right? Because when this is happening in your macroing, just being able to like in your case just 4 and holding down D instead of having to do the SD thing. It's saves like a fraction of a second, but it adds up quite a bit throughout the game because you want to be doing it like basically non-stop throughout the game, right? Or throughout the early game at least. So we took some damage from the adepts. It's not great, but it's not the end of the world because at least we didn't make any more links, right? So that's good for us. 4 minutes, you definitely want to be scouting the third right away here, yeah. Again, another thing here with moving up all these links is he could have made 2 more adepts, right? So he could have warped in another round of adepts, and those 2 adepts could be here right now, and then they shade into your natural. Your links are over here, and it gets very, very messy very quick, right? So again, if we don't have vision in the front of their base or like on their adepts,
then we only
just send one
out.
or 2 links. Yeah, 1 or 2 links out to scout and leave the rest at home. The third. So now the main thing you want to scout is like, again, you want to scout the front here. You want to see if there's no +1 area. You want to see if it's warping in. You want to see if he's making more Stargate units. Because usually if they're doing an adept play like this, they won't be able to afford their 3rd Stargate unit.
While taking a 3rd?
Yeah, while taking a 3rd. So if they're going like Stargate into 2 units only, then you can start getting a little bit suspicious, because then that means that the unit that the money that went into the would have gone into the 3rd Stargate unit, went into some tech instead, right? Sometimes they do like only 1 Stargate unit, and then it's even more committed, right? Then they might be doing like a charge out timing or like going straight into Skytoss or something like that. But that's like once you see the 3rd Stargate unit, that's when you're kind of like, okay, he's just playing a standard back game. That's kind of your cue to knowing that he's just chilling, you know.
I tried to look for the third target unit to know if I want to make like more than this amount of queens and place more than this amount of spores.
I think like 6 queens is usually pretty much always fine. Sometimes you can make like a late 7th queen, but basically just like the way you want to do it is, so like you need to start a spore at like 3:28 or so to have it in time for the first oracle. Usually the first oracle you can, if you're only on 2 bases like this, you can skip the first spore because you can have 2 queens in each base, right? The problem is like if your third was on time, your third would be finishing up at the same time, and you would need something at the third as well. So usually what you'll do is you make 1 spore at 3:28 for the first oracle, have 2 queens, 1 spore, 1 queen, right? Or 1 spore, and the 5th queen will finish right in time. And then like roughly 30 seconds later, you need to start the next spore, because once there's 2 oracles, even if you have 2 queens, they can just like ignore the queens and go for drones, right? So at that point, you kind of need to have like three queens, or at least 1 spore, 1 queen. Ideally, 1 spore, 2 queen per base. Just to be sure he can't really mess with you. And this is like where we talked about the early game and stuff coming into play as well. Like being able to afford all these queens and spores is really tight on your mineral income, right? So making sure that your early larva spending adds up so you can actually afford all these defense in time for the oracles.
Yeah, the saturation in the start, and then the constant larva.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, so in this case, scouting, again, our overload spread should probably be a little bit better. You kind of want something like down here. Also, I think like this is probably a little bit, it's nice to have them this far out, but I think this is far out enough. So like if he makes a void ray, you can't get them back in time, or at least not all of them back in time. I like to go like maybe a little bit safer, so you have like a little bit more time to get back.
Usually the one at his base is the one that gets picked up by the void ray though. So don't the other ones should usually
a lot of the
get
time
home, right?
they will go across the map first because they know they can get the kill on the, like if you're not planning on hiding something big, some big tech, they will go across the map
so
first.
if it's an actual good Protoss, they'll do that. Yeah, that's what I do when I play Mutas, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So they go across the map first because they know they're gonna get this one later, right? So they go and get more damage, and then they get the guaranteed damage later.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's for sure. Ling run bys. It's nice, but it's usually kind of a bait at this stage of the game, unless like he's out of the map.
It did nothing.
Yeah. Usually, like you want something else to be happening when you're doing these run bys, because either he's just going to be in position or he's just going to be able to defend perfectly, right? So I would try to do these run bys like when he's moving out or when he's taking his 4th or something like that, right? When something else is happening, because right now he's just kind of sitting there and you end up losing a lot of units for free. Doing like a small run by would be fine. Like let's say you get in here and you just like, okay, I got in, let's send 4 links into the main base and poke a little bit and see what's happening, and try to keep the rest.
Yeah, because then it's more of a scout.
Yeah, exactly. It's a scout with the potential to do some damage if he messes up, right? Again, it's also very tempting when it's completely open. You just get to run in for free. I can understand what your thought here, but I would think would have been better here is just like go for guaranteed damage. So I would just split my links into 2, and I would just try to target down as many probes as possible.
Yeah.
1 by 1. Like running into the mid line and trying to like fight is nice and all, but if you split me into 2 here, you can probably kill like 6-7 probes.
Yeah. I saw no buildings on his ramp, so I really wanted to just hide Balings, but I should have gone for the guaranteed damage.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, here you kind of saw everything you needed to, right? You saw no gas here. You saw a bunch of gateways. So it should have kind of told you what you need to know in terms of defense. Obviously, again, your ideally in this stage of the game, you would be higher on draw count. Your 4th should ideally already be finished almost. But you have a lot more information in this game at least. And again, I think in this scenario, Lingbane is more okay when he's playing this. I would probably add in roaches anyways, just because when they stop making stalkers and they go into like sellouts and they start adding in either like colossus or archons, having roaches ready is really quite important.
Yeah, I played a lot of roaches just a few weeks ago. I don't know why I went away from it. Not really.
Yeah, like a lot of time when they play it's like fast third Stargate style into mass gate unit, starting off with Lingbane is quite nice, but unless you're like able to kill them early on with Lingbane, you do need to have a transition ready, and usually that'll be roaches. Yeah, this is very nice doing this Evo wall to stop them from shading into the main. Something to make this more consistent you could do is just hotkeying this drone, so you have it on like 3 or 2, whatever.
Yeah, it's usually on 3. I'm not sure why it's not this time.
Yeah, and again, queens here should probably be in the front.
Yeah, since I made the spore up there so late, I didn't want to move them. And
Yeah.
that's just bad because I should have made the spore.
Yeah, that's also another thing, like just having when you have your queens on different hotkeys, you'll feel easier about spreading them up. Now you kind of feels like you're keeping them all here because you don't want to like mess with your, like moving them around feels too bothersome, right? Kind of, almost.
Yeah, I have to go box them and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like just having them with different hotkeys makes it just a lot easier. Like keeping 3 queens here until the spore is ready is fine, but after that you can just leave like 1 queen, 1 spore, or like 2 queens if you want to be really safe. The queens really need to be like here and then forward here, and like when you need to go to take your 4th, which should be about now, a little bit earlier ideally, your queens need to go over here, right, as well, and to protect the 4th from the oracle. So
yeah,
you always need to be able to like pull them to the front. Let's see. I would say like this, even though you didn't really take any damage from these adepts, you're not really in a vacular position, right? You have no 4th, you have no real tech. All you have is a big Lingbaning army, which is... It's hard to get damage like this when he has oracles out. Or maybe he lost the oracles. He did lose the oracles, that's good. But like it's hard to get damage if you're super all in with this composition, you know? You kind of need to have like a big eco so you can make a lot of Lingbane, and you're just like looking for trades, and that one Baneling run by that connect with a natural will make it like tip the odds in your favor, right?
yeah.
Being straight up all in with this composition and be like, okay, I'm gonna kill you with this, that very rarely actually works. Like usually it's like you have a decent economy and you're spamming all Lingbane and you're trading quite aggressively, and eventually you get like a big run by that puts you ahead and forces him to like kind of all in into you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if I do that now, I'm just probably dead.
Yeah,
Because I don't have the eco to back up. Like, I don't have the eco to have a army back home, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because usually it's quite easy for Protoss to deal with like the one wave, but the goal is usually that like, okay, you traded out and he survived, but you got like a big baning run by into like one of the mineral lines, and that's what's made the attack worth it. And now your next Remax can maybe kill him, you know?
Yeah.
Or your next army can kill him. But in this scenario, like whenever you're completely all in on Lingbane, you're like, okay, I have to kill him with this army. That's usually never gonna end up too well unless he like, yeah, kind of just goes and clumps everything up and lets you kill everything with the Banings and also could kill the mineral line, right?
Yeah, what I usually don't do is wait for speed either, which I think that's something I should fix myself.
I think doing like small run bys without speed is fine. Like if you like just when he's like, for example, when he did the depth push here. Let's go back and see. Like here, if you had like 5 links here morphing into banelings and walking 5 banelings into this mineral line while defending this, that would have been decent, right? Like even though you don't have banelings.
Yeah, when he's not looking.
Yeah. But like doing like this big as like 20 baneling, slow baneling run bys are usually not gonna be worth it in the trading department. If you even like get on top of him, right? Because he has so much time to react, and then the banelings don't really connect it well either because they're slow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually regret it very quickly after I've done it.
Yeah. I would say also like if you want to incorporate something into your like more aggressive style, you're just getting used to like having a single, like even a slow overlord on this side of the map when you're playing like versus non-void ray openers. So you can do like a single slow like 8-lane drop into the main base and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because usually like
Force them to
versus
split their
Protoss,
attention because it's so easy for me to do, right?
yeah, exactly. And usually for Protoss, the like you're not really looking for like the one, like I said before, the one big fight. You're looking for finding damage here and there when he's not paying attention, and then forcing the one big engagement on creep usually. Because again, like you're never really gonna just end the game with the one big fight straight up. Usually it's just like you're trading, and then you get in some eco damage somehow. And yeah, just small investments that can pay off big, right? Like this, for example, like a small bailing run by that can kill a lot of probes. That's kind of what you want. And again, like looking at this game, considering how it went so far, you're not in that bad a position. If your economy was a little bit better, you would probably be crushing this, right? Because it's not really a scary army if you had enough Ling Bane to deal with it. Also, I think like if you're playing Ling Bane, you should probably always pretty much have a macro hatch.
Yeah.
Usually, what I do, like when I play Ling Bane versus Protoss like this, is I'll take my 4th, and then like my 5th and a macro hatch.
I feel like I placed one, but I maybe forgot just this game. Usually I do, because I've realized, at least lately, I've realized if I want to play like this, I really do need the extra larva, especially considering my injects are already a little bit weak.
Yeah, like obviously, if you have to choose, you should choose the hatchery on location on a base, right? But a lot of the time, when you're playing Ling Bane, you will need the macro hatchery as well. But if the game is scrappy, I would definitely go like for the base instead. But yeah, in normal games where you have your normal economy, I would just go for both.
Yeah.
And here you really need banelings. Like it's gonna be hard to trade well with just Ling Infestor.
Yeah, I need to keep morphing. Every time I fight with my Banelings, I need to morph new ones, right? Every single time afterwards.
Yeah.
Or during even.
Yeah, that's also fine. Because like the Lings alone, they can only really like clean up the scraps after the banings, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. Yeah, like even after considering everything in this game, you probably still could have won. Like now it starts to get a little bit rough because he's going into Colossus.
I do win this one. I don't think I should.
Oh really?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. Somehow.
I'm surprised you don't die right here actually. Nice. I guess you have really good upgrades. Yeah, actually you have really good upgrades. That's a big deal. But yeah, I think we can go into the next game after this.
Yeah.
Like a big thing in general is just queen management and queen positioning, making sure that that's also like why having the one group with the creep queens and one group with the inject queens, because then your inject queens will just stay in position, and you'll only pull them when you really need to, right?
Yeah, I've tried to learn it, but the second I reach tilt, which sometimes happens after one game these days, I just it's autopilot from there, which
Okay.
I do need to fix that.
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of playing StarCraft is just playing against yourself and breaking bad habits. Especially like
I think what you said about AI, just playing like a few games of AI in the start of the day.
Yes.
And trying to make it my autopilot to actually have all of those good things that you've talked about, the queen hotkeys, the larva, constant larva production, all of these backbone things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, for sure. Because StarCraft, it isn't really a strategy game, right? It's like it's cosplaying as a strategy game, but it's really just like a button presser simulator, like. It's just about like having good habits, good muscle memory, knowing what to do. It's not so much about actually like making active choices. Like obviously there's some decision making happening in each game, right? But it has more of a back foot. It's more about just
how well can you program your brain?
Yeah, exactly. Like how well have you like pre-learned everything so you already know what you need to do. Like before you see something, you should already have like the response to everything in mind, right? And then as soon as you see it, like, okay,
Yeah.
now I know exactly. Now I go down the road number B, road B. I mean, and yeah, exactly. So like you already know like exactly all the paths, potential paths you can take. So as soon as you see something, you immediately just go down that path, right?
Yeah. I think that's why some of my weird shit just wins games, because people don't have a preset path against some of the stuff.
Yeah, for sure. That's again what we talked
And
about the
that's why
wall,
it
right?
hits a hard wall.
Yeah, exactly. Because once you get to people where their execution is good enough that it doesn't matter if they get confused or not, they just have
Yeah.
more efficient everything, right? So they just get ahead anyways. So in this game
Yeah,
we were just
exactly.
too late with the drone, right? It needs to go down at like 30
Yeah.
seconds or so. We were like 5 seconds late. Even then, he sent it super early, so you still wouldn't get it down. But here, you want to be here early anyway, so you can go down and get like if you can, a 16 hatch is nice. 17 is also okay. Anything later than that starts to feel kind of bad. Like here, the moment you see the probe, you need to be like, okay, I can't get the hatchery down. And you just immediately piss off to somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, I very rarely take my third as my natural. Like, once every 50 ZVPs, so I'm already out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. So like if you're doing the 14 hatch build, you can get blocked still, right? If they send their very first probe. Like they
Yeah,
the
especially
one probe immediately.
on
Yeah.
this map, they kind of get short rush distance too.
Yeah. I think if you're doing a 15 hatch opener, you can still get it down. I'm pretty sure. Like the non-overlord 15 hatch version, you get it down for sure. But yeah, with the 14 hatch, you would probably still get blocked here. It would be very, very close. Yeah, you would still get blocked for sure.
Yeah.
And he was even like a
15 hatch
second or
goes
two
down.
late. Yeah, 15 hatch goes down. But yeah, so here like the probe just needs to be here, or drone needs to be here like 5 seconds faster. You see this and you immediately go to one of the third bases. We'll see how your. This is actually good because now we get to see how your response is when you have to play with an off location third. I think sending this drone down here does nothing. I think you should just keep it in the main base.
Yeah, I think, like, oh, you should at least be forced to make a pylon, but in reality, I probably lose more, right?
Yeah, you do, for sure. And also, like, it matters more for you because you're on, like, kind of on, like, you have to deal with the incoming adepts and everything, right? And you're wasting money doing this. So you're normally, like, going for, even if you can, going for a third hatch before queens here, I wouldn't recommend, just because a lot of the time the follow-up to getting your natural block is going to be 2 adepts, and dealing with that without the fast second queen is going to be quite difficult, right? So yeah, already here we can look at some things to fix, for sure. So obviously, like, with the opening and stuff, we're a little bit behind because we're missing a larva and whatnot, but this drone, you really want to keep it in your main base here. So the general rule here for when you get your hatchery blocked like this is this hatchery, after you have 16 on minerals and 3 on gas, only makes overlords and links, and this hatchery only makes drones. So
Okay, yeah.
because like here, like, it's not like a normal base where you can just transfer to the natural. Like, it's really far to go down here, and also there's going to be adepts coming here in between the bases, cutting off the rally, right? So you can make like your 1 extra drone that goes from here to the natural, sometimes 2, depending on the openers, the build orders, right? But as soon as the time where like the adept comes here, you can't send any drones anymore, right? And from that point on, you only want to make your drones from the third hatch.
Yeah.
So here you should start your queens immediately. That's the most important thing. You should already have an overlord in production, so this should have been an overlord for sure. Because again, getting the third hatch here before the queens is pretty much a suicide if he goes for double adept. So yeah, queen here immediately, drone here, ling here. And usually in this now you're kind of forced into double ling, right? Because we can start with 2 as well as we usually do. We start with 2 lings. We wait to see chrono boost. As soon as we see chrono boost, we make more links from this hatchery. You also would send, as soon as you have 100 gas here, the drones that's mining gas here, you would send down to the third as well. So you would keep 16 minerals here, and everything else goes to the third. Yeah, again, this overlord should have been earlier, and it should have been in the main base here. So being out on the map here is pretty much a big no-no unless you're planning on just running by and getting past the probe, right? So that's something you can do if you want to all in this situation. It's actually like used to be pretty common a couple of years ago. Is you just make links like from here. You don't make any more drones. You just pure link and you send them your first links around, and you wait for this adept to move out, and then you move in with the links, right? You snipe the pylon,
Oh, and you
then
stop
you have
the wall,
links.
yeah.
You snipe the pylon with the 6 links or 8 links or whatever, and then you kill the adept with your links at home, and then you kill him, right? Because he has nothing. But just running down the middle like this is never really gonna work unless he goes AFK and loses the adept to slow links, which should never really happen outside of creep. Like on creep you can maybe get this around, but on off creep you should never really be able to kill this adept. But yeah, you know, if you're gonna stay defensive, what you should do is you should send, depending on what's happening, right? If it's a double chrono boost, this was a single chrono boost, but if it's a double chrono boost, you want to have 4 links here, 4 links here, and then later 6 links, right? So the first 4 links would go here, and then you would make 4 more that goes from this hatchery to here. Also really important versus this build that their third queen starts at the third hatch, and it needs to start like immediately if they're chrono boosting adepts.
Okay.
So again, second chrono boost on adepts, this needs to start immediately. Again, here in this scenario, we actually do tumor first in the main base and inject first in the third. And that's because we don't, like I mentioned before, we don't want to be... Yeah, exactly. We want the drones from here. And also, in this case, we don't have a natural, right? So getting creep here to connect our bases is actually very, very helpful. Some people like to do double inject in this scenario. I personally don't like it because you won't have the money to spend the larva anyways. But if you want to do double inject instead, that's kind of okay. I prefer inject here and tumor in the main base. Yeah, and then you try to split your links equally. So you're like, when the 2 adepts hit you, you should have 2 queens in the third hatch and 6 links here and 1 queen in the main base. And then they have like,
but only,
they should have like
if I see
one
the 2
shade.
chronos, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they should have like 1 shade before your link speed finishes, right? So they can shade once, and then they have to shade back out. Otherwise, your link speed will finish, and you can kill the links or kill the adepts.
Yeah.
So, and then it's just important that you're very conservative with your links and you let the queens lead the charge, and you're using the links kind of like how you would with like versus Hellions, you know, where you're waiting for the queens are in the front fighting the Hellions, and if it tries to drive past your queens, that's when your links come in to fight the adepts, right?
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Again, like this also, make sure you saturate this base first before you start saturating this one. These drones will be way better off down here, for sure. But again, like as a general
this
rule,
looks bad.
yeah. So like in a normal game at this position, you would have a fully saturated natural, right? 100%. But right now you don't only have 5 drones in your quote-unquote natural, which is very rough for you, very rough for sure. So we scouted warp gate skip, we scouted 1 chrono boost.
Yeah, I was pretty sure this was oracled after.
Yeah. Yeah, usually also another thing that I do is like I mentioned the timing first with the 30 and 20 seconds, right? So like here you see it actually was the second chrono boost. It's just very late for some reason. This unit finished like 10 seconds late, 12 seconds late even.
Yeah, he was supply blocked because he tried to make the pylon in the natural, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Doesn't really make sense, but that explains why at least. But yeah, like here, like so as soon as you see this adept finish, you should look, is there another chrono boost? Okay, that's another chrono boost. And then you look again 20 seconds later, you see what comes out. And as soon as you see the second adept, this overload should just go right into the main base. Because even if you chrono boost a stalker, like right away, you'll still get to see the main base, right? Unless you get super unlucky and like you go.
So I'll
like
just expect it to die if he chrono boosts a stalker, but I will get the info, and I'll just make 2 overlords at home.
Yeah, and then really at this point, like he already chrono boosted 2 units, right? He doesn't really want to chrono boost a 3rd gateway unit. Like he wants to save chrono boost for the oracle, and he also wants to chrono boost his probes, right? So you'll get full information, and if he actually chrono boosts a stalker, you'll like he's hurting himself by doing that, right? And usually what I do is like I try to just start in, see whatever the target is, and then I try to go towards the like this area here, right? So I can later use it to scout the third if I need to, if it survives. Sometimes it dies, sometimes it survives. But either way, it's nice. Because really at this point, all you're really looking for, you just see this. You keep looking here to see if this guy shades out or not. If you see that he stays home, you don't make any more links. If you see this guy shading out, you make 4 more links, right? And when your overload gets to like here, you don't see the adept anymore, right? It'll be out of your vision range. And at that point, I make 4 links blindly just because, I don't know, the adept could be shading out, right? So I just want to have the links ready.
Okay. If I see them already making a third unit now, like, sure, I still go in with the Overlord, but do I try to check to see if it's a third adept?
No, there's no point because like at that point you'll have link speed anyways, right? So if you have 8 links and like queens, you'll be able to fight versus 3 adepts, right? Like as long as you're not fighting them out on the map, and you can make links directly at that point. It's more like it's the first 2 adepts that are scary, right? Because if you don't make enough links before link speed, then you can get punished really hard by the 2 adepts. But yeah, ideally your overload should be like more closer to like here. So even if he makes a stalker, like you'll still make it to this high ground. But if it's not a stalker, you are closer to just instantly dive. Because like from here, if you go from here, you might not be able to see everything you need to before the stalker finishes if you corner boosts it. So
this is like a crutch, and it's like, oh, maybe I'll react slowly to the stalker.
Yeah.
I should just put it where it needs to be and try to react faster.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of stuff like that in terms of improving, it's just like you just gotta accept that if you fuck up, you're gonna die or you're gonna like fall behind. But then at least it's very clear, like, okay, I just fucked up. That's why I died. It's not because I necessarily like made the wrong decision or, you know, it's not a complicated thing to fix. It's just like just look at your overload faster. Yeah. It's the same. It's a lot of the reason why people struggle, I think, in normal CVCs is because that's basically like early game CVC in a nutshell. There's a lot of tiny things you can fuck up, and you get really punished for them really hard because of how like early Ling Bane works, right? So it's really just about being able to like looking at the minimap and reacting in time. And it's like, sure, you can fuck up and die, but it's at least it's very clear why you died, right? And you want to eliminate these, like you said, crutches because they actually hurt you in the long run, or they hurt you when the better your opponent is, the more they're gonna hurt you, right? The crutches.
Yeah, for sure. They're like they might give me 50 MMR right now, but what if I want 200 MMR tomorrow?
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so again, another very common pattern from you, I think, is just like your links are just kind of doing stuff randomly. It seems a lot of the time. I mean, I'm sure. Like,
I think I'm trying to be active, but it's like the wrong active.
Yeah, exactly. So again, if you're scouting here and you see the third coming, then you can do this. But again, you need to be more more reactive, more passive and reactive. But like you can go like full, like using your aggressive builds as well. That's fine. But when you're in this stage of the game, before you're like, when you're doing your aggressive stuff, you should have this like timing in mind. Okay, this is my timing. This is what I want to hit. This is my goal. This is what I want to achieve with this attack. And then you commit to whatever you want to commit to, right? But when you're in this phase of like building up, when you're still macroing and you're still like preparing, and your timing isn't here yet, right? You do want to be more conservative and more passive with everything. Again, here we mentioned overlords, especially this stage of the game is when it's the most important to have overlords everywhere so you can be in position with the queens. And obviously, as you've seen from my stream, I'm sure, is that I fucked this up as well, and the Oracle comes in and kills 3 drones, and I'm a very sad camper.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen again for sure, but it's something like you gotta keep working on non-stop. And it's like vision everywhere, and what you want to do is just like have your queens in the area where you have the least vision. So in this case, like you have vision here, you have somewhat decent vision in the middle thanks to your links, but ideally you would have like an overlord here or something, right?
Yeah.
And then
this kind of comes back to the hotkeying of the queens, right? Too. It's awkward for me to move those two because I would move everything.
Yeah, exactly. So here, especially like when you're split like this, is when having multiple queen control groups is very good, right? So I would in this case, when you have vision, like you see, let's imagine you have an overlord here, right? But you don't have one over here. So this would be an area where you don't really see if the oracle comes from. So then you should position your queens towards the bottom part of the mineral line. Same thing like with your main base. You have vision from the natural, right? But you don't have vision from the top left. So your queens should probably be positioned like a little bit more here. And it's kind of impossible to be like airtight and have vision exactly everywhere. Sometimes there will be an angle where you won't have vision, the oracle will come in, or sometimes you'll just be slow to react. But that's really like all that early game CP is about, is just having as good vision as possible and being as fast as possible with your reactions with the queens to deal with the oracles. Again here, like this is the timing when the first oracle would arrive. This is a little bit late. So at this stage of the game, you need to have a spore or 2 queens per base, right? So in this case, you have 2 queens here. You have nothing here. You have 1 queen here.
Yeah,
so
I only
here,
have
like,
3 queens and no spores.
Yeah. So like this is the only base where you actually have defended. So this is like the best case scenario for you is if it goes here, right? But this guy is kind of out of position. Or actually, going into position now. Oh no, there it goes. Okay. You were in position, but then without. So this is kind of best case scenario for you, right? This base would have been 5 dead drones. This base but also would have been like at least 5 dead drones probably, right? Because you would have 1 less queen to attack it.
Yeah.
So very important timing is like 3:55 usually is when unless it's like a proxy or like a very short map. 3:55 is the timing when the first oracle will arrive, and the timing where you need to have like at least 2 queens or 1 spore per base so you can defend. Queens are kind of better.
When do you think it's reasonable to get like your lair and your evo if you have a decent game against this normal stuff?
So usually, like if you play like a standard macro game, your standard timings would be like at 4:30 you need to start a Roach Warren, pretty much no matter what, unless you like know it's Skytoss or something like that, right? If it's not a normal macro game, like if it's not making a 3rd unit, or if it's making 1 unit and like a late 3rd base, like this is assuming you see like a normal timing 3rd base. With a late 3rd base, I would always get my Roach Warren at like 4 minutes. Like as soon as I see no 3rd, I would start a Roach Warren, because the normal timing for the Protoss 3rd would be like 3:55 or so. It's like around the time that your oracle hits your base is when they'll take their 3rd, right?
Yeah.
So if I didn't see a 3rd base coming down right now, I would be dropping a Roach Warren in the next 5 seconds or so. And if you don't see that, just a normal timing Roach Warren would be like 4:30. If you know it's triple oracle, you can play Evo, but it can still be like triple oracle into some weird charge slot builds, in which case you kind of need Roach Warren a lot of the time. But like if you see triple unit, you should at the very latest get like 4:40, and that's usually the time where I start my lair as well. It's like 4:40 and 2 more gases, and then Evo right after that, right? So in a perfect game, it would be like 4:30 to 4:40 lair, and right after you start the lair, you add 2 more gases, and right after that, you add the Evo, right? And you try not to cut any drones for this. Like you try to make sure that you spend your Lara first before you do this. In an ideal game, you'll be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
Another small detail that matters a lot in these Oracle defense is like some people even hotkey their spores, but another like one thing is really good is always trying to target the low HP Oracle.
Yeah, I've been
it reduces
trying
the
to.
time.
It's
It's really hard
should hotkey my spores.
Yeah, some people do that, and it's actually quite good, I think. But the problem is just that like, if you're not attacking the low HP Oracle, you're giving him more time because he has the shield to tank for the other Oracle, right? So you're giving him more time to attack your drones. So usually, like if you're not targeting the low HP one, you'll lose another drone or 2 just because he can stay longer with two Oracles, right? To shoot your drones.
Yeah, optimally I would camera hotkey, move my drones, and then select my queen's attack, select my spore attack on the same Oracle.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing is just like overall positioning is just so important, especially like this is the scenario where it's the most important versus Protoss. And if there's no Void Ray or anything like that, you really should have like a complete semicircle around your base that gives you full vision, and even like an overlord like here in the dead spaces in between your bases as well, so you see everything. And this is true kind of for CVT as well if there's no Viking. Like you do want to make sure that you make a semicircle around your base just for vision. And then obviously like as the game goes on and later on you have overlord speed, you start to put overlords further and further out on the map, right, in dead spaces around the map.
Yeah.
Again, you are a little bit behind here, but his third was also very late, and these tech structures are also very late, so it's actually kind of even, I would say, at this point. Spine here, I think, never makes sense unless you're like think he's like doing an 8-gate, no upgrade all-in sort of thing. Like you see the no gas here.
Yeah,
but...
I faced this guy like 15 times. He all-ins me a lot.
Okay. Another thing here that you get for free, right, is this didn't kill this overlord, is you get to see his building probes.
Yeah.
And that's a big tell that he's
And
not
I don't
all-in
even
here.
think I looked at it once. And that's a big thing.
Yeah, for sure. So like if you see him making probes, then you know you're not getting all-in. Like it's a pretty high-level move for the Protoss player to fake making probes. Like there's some builds where they fake making probes, where they're like just constantly making one probe. It goes to 90%, and then they cancel it and then remake another one, and you just do that over and over and over again. But that's a pretty.
I think I've been hurt by that once, and then I'm like, oh, maybe it's just fake probes every single time afterwards.
Yeah, it's a pretty high-level move. I wouldn't worry about too much about it, to be honest. Yeah, so when they're playing this like Oracle into Mass Stalker style, you do want to play Ling Bane like this. This is good. Bane Rabbit into the third is fine. Ideally, what I think is a good move here, if you're struggling with this sort of like push, is you should ideally be double expanding here when you take your fourth and fifth at the same time. And then when he goes with this sack one base and you kill his fourth with your links, and then you force him to kind of all in into you. Because the problem with the Stalkers, if he just like sits outside of creep and just keeps trading over and over and over again, is that you lose so much value over time. You can never really collapse on the army because of the oracles. As long as this oracle stays far enough behind so your queens can't hit them, you can never really like dive on this army until you have like a massive army advantage, right? But this like bailing run by to the third and trying to cancel his fourth with your links forces him to actually commit, and that allows you to take a much better fight, right? Than if he's just sitting over here behind oracles and with stasis traps and whatnot, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I thought it was weird that he tried to take this bottom fourth again. It really messed with me because I was so sure he was going to take the the top one.
Yeah, it happens. I think it's like a good habit just always start putting links on the bases, right? All the potential bases. So yeah, like ideally, like usually what happens is when you're playing with these Stalker styles, you make like a round of links like you did, and usually that will force the Protoss to stay home for a lot longer, and that gives you some space to like drone up a little bit more, start getting roaches out. Like you can stay on Ling Bane in this scenario and just mass Ling Bane, but you're kind of committing to killing them, and in this sense that making the hive doesn't make a lot of sense in my opinion, because if you're staying on just Ling Bane here, you have a big timing to try to kill them before they get any like reasonable tech out. Because Stalker Zealot can deal with like Ling Bane in small numbers, but once you get up to like high numbers of Ling Bane with baning speed, it gets really hard for him to keep up with that, with just pure gateway units, right? Because he has to start to split them when you have a certain number of banelings, and then your links become really effective, right? And also just stopping banelings running into his mineral lines without any splash damage is really difficult for him as well. So you like if you're going Ling Bane like this, you should really be pushing it harder. Yeah, like you should be pushing quite hard if you're staying on Ling Bane. If you're doing something else, like you're adding in roaches or you're adding in hydras, you have a bit more longevity, right? Because you can kind of fight versus Archons or Colossus a little bit. But yeah, like if you're staying on Ling Bane this long, you do want to get something done with it for sure.
Yeah, here I just didn't even have any banelings. I'm probably just dead.
Yeah, banelings make a huge deal here, and also like a big thing in CVP. As a general rule, in like versus Terran, sometimes you move your banelings, but versus Protoss, you never want to actually attack with your banelings when you're fighting his army. They should always just be on full move command. And
Yeah,
your banelings are like a
usually
tank.
like if I'm in the right space of mind, they're on a separate hockey and they're just move commanded behind everything. I think this time I probably have everything on the same hockey.
Yeah, so usually like if you look at like high level Zergs when they use banelings in their fights, they'll just most of the micro is them just move commanding their banelings around, trying to stay as close to the enemy units as possible without actually detonating on them.
Yeah.
Because like you basically never a baneling should never die by exploding. It should always be killed by a Protoss unit because it tanks quite a bit.
Yeah, A moving them feels so bad.
Yeah, for sure. Like the only time you would like move them is if you're like right on top of a couple of Templars and you want to blow them up, right? That's when you or like
but then you probably manually detonate them anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you, for sure you just wanna give them move command. Okay, let's go back and see a little bit because I think you could have definitely defended this. Before the fighting started. So in general, like you don't ever want to engage this until you have like a decent chunk of banelings.
Yeah, the first fight is without banelings. That's probably the reason I can't hold the next push, right?
Yeah, and here's like also again where the not having a creep queen hotkey really hurts you because you don't really want every queen in the front here. Like he's not all in, right? Like he's attacking up behind, he's getting a fourth behind it. He is kind of all in because his prop count is kind of low, but he shouldn't really be all in here, right? And so in a scenario where your opponent isn't really all in, unless you really, really have to, you don't want to pull all your queens. Like in this scenario, you're more likely to die because you're going to start floating money due to not having larva than you are to...
Yeah.
Like that's a decision making
even just
thing,
having
right? So you have to make like in the moment of the game. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And usually like in scenarios like this, you can usually like stack up queens on the hatchery before you pull them as well. That's also something you want to try to do. But yeah, like you have to make the decision in game, right? Where when you pull the queens, like, okay, if I pull these queens, will it help me turn the fight, or will it make me lose because I won't have larva? Like those are the two things you have to consider when you pull the queens, right? But it seems like for you, since you all have them all on one hotkey, it's like if some queens are coming, then all of them are coming, right? It's kind of how it feels like. And that's gonna be a big problem for sure, because there's gonna be a lot of fights where you want the queens, but you don't want all the queens. So I think that's one thing you definitely gotta work on, is just having a... If you don't want to hotkey them, that's okay. I do recommend hotkeying them, but you need to at least have like a queen per base that sits there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it looks... every time I look at my replays, I kind of cringe a little bit at where my queens are.
This is the...
If I'm playing my best, I will make unhotkeyed queens and actually use counter hotkeys to inject.
Yeah.
Or like, backspace inject.
Yeah, so like ideally, I think what you should work on is get to a place where even if you're not playing your best, you're still doing that. And if you lose, you still lose. That's okay. But that should be like one of your main goals to focus on, I think. And again, like you can still play whatever style you want to play, but like those things are gonna help you no matter what, right?
Yeah, no matter what unit, I need Lara to make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's so obvious, but it always helps to get it pointed out. Like, the more you get it pointed out, the more it cements in your brain, right? And especially if someone else tells me. That helps.
Yeah. It's always useful. Even for me as well, like, I have a lot of things where people like, why don't you just do this instead? And, okay, that actually makes sense. Why aren't I doing that, you know?
Yeah.
But it's good to, like, get them pointed out and you can start working on them, right? And it's also like the rough part about StarCraft, especially like if you're at a place where you have to learn a bunch of new fundamentals, is that it does take time for it to kick in, right? And you need time to practice your muscle memory. But that's again where the single player stuff should come in very useful, right?
Yeah, for sure. Or just accepting that, I'm gonna lose for this number of days, this number of games, and just accepting that, whatever account I'm playing on right now is gonna be down in the gutter and not attach my self-worth to my MMR.
Yeah. And also just like, exactly, just accepting that the goal is to improve and not to win, right?
Yeah.
But that's very human, right? It's very hard to let go of the ego.
Yeah, for sure. Ascending above emotions, that's
Yeah.
a task.
Okay, so I think you still could have defended this, but you were a little bit too over-eager with taking this fight. So like you should always expect stasis with this army composition, right? So
Yeah.
you need to send in small groups of units to trigger them. And then...
I've been trying to do the like three Zerglings in front of the army, um, but as soon as panic sets in and I'm like not expecting an attack, this is what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, so here, like, again, you don't want to fight here before Banelings. And this, again, where I think the Hive and the double Evo is hurting a little bit, right? Because it's a lot of gas.
Yeah.
And you're forced to play on a higher gas count than you really want to. Like, usually versus this armor composition, I will stay on 4 gas for a really long time. Like, I have 1 Evo running, and I'll get, like, Baneling speed and Roach speed if I have a Roach Warren and stuff like that, right? But most of my gas will just go into Banelings and really high focus on minerals. Like, ideally with your drone count, you would have... Like, you're not really mining from these gases, right? But...
yeah, I'm just mining for like 2, I think.
Yeah. Let's have some more drones here on the 4th. Have a 5th hatch. Make a lot of links, make a lot of banelings. So in this fight, you should just... If it is really aggressive and he's like coming forward to fight your queens, you move in with the links to like force him back a little bit, right? But you should be saving up for like a big baneling ball here. And then when you have the baneling ball, you want to make sure you trigger the stasis. And then that's when you can actually fight, when you have a big ball of links and banelings. So you can actually... Because like, when you have the banelings, he can't just really stand there and fight. He has to kind of kite away. And that allows your links to pick off a lot of stalkers as he's blinking away.
Yeah. But I really like what you said about just double expanding to 2 sides. Because abandoning this base, if I'm at this situation, will feel so much better, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, so imagine like
at
these
least until I have the baneling ball.
Yeah, exactly. You were here canceling this base with these links. You were saving up a new bane ball over here. Your queens can just go back over here onto creep. You can just send whatever drones you have here down here and re-expand here afterwards. And he's down to 3 base, and he kind of has to find some damage, right? Just killing this hatcher isn't really enough for him at that point. And you can still
and I
do
think I even
like,
had some banelings in his 3rd at this point, so he's down to like 50 workers or something.
Yeah. That was good. Yeah, like the baneling run by is really cheap, and it's also really good to just distract them from looking at this fight as well. Doesn't really cost you much attention wise, like you can just rally the banelings in here, and like if you want to be sure you get some damage, you just like right click on the battery, because then it'll explode the battery and also explode the whatever is next to it. But if you have the attention for it, microing it obviously is better. Alright. But yeah, really important that like you don't, when you play that versus that composition, you don't want to be bleeding out units. You want like decisive big fights where you can collapse on him. The only time it's like good to force a small fight is if you can like force him to use a bunch of Oracle energy and then you just run away before he can actually kill that much, you know. So you wasted Oracle energy, but that's pretty rare. But yeah, obviously like this session we went over a lot of things, right, that you should work on, and it can definitely be like hard to get used to new things in StarCraft when you're set in your ways for sure. So I would just like make like a list like for yourself and prioritize one thing at a time and add on more things as you feel like you can handle it, right? Because I feel like at some point like trying to do everything at once is just gonna make you not do any one thing well, right? So
yeah, I think main focus is gonna be injects, and by like, you know, main title injects, and then sub main title will be queen hotkeys and camera locations. So through working on those 2 things, injects will get better, right? I think that's maybe what I want to focus on first, unless you think something else is more important.
No, I think that sounds good. Whatever you feel is most relevant for your games, right? And I'm sure we'll like talk about these things again as we get further down the line.
I usually have a lot of trouble dealing with glaives, which I think is what he does this game.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, with glaives, like there's a lot of different builds, right? And it's a lot about just being ready for them when they actually hit you. Like if they catch you off guard, it's really hard because you end up just bleeding out too many units really fast. So it's something where when the adepts actually show up to your base, if you're ready for it, you just shut it down very easily. You take no damage. But if you're not ready, it goes really bad. It rarely is like an even situation after the adept attack. Usually one guy is quite far ahead.
But if I hold it, should I go attack or should I just sit back and just out macro and get, you know, tech up?
So it's like kind of depends how well you hold it. Usually you need to hold it well enough so you can go across the map and still leave some units at home.
Okay.
Because if you go fully across the map, you'll end up completely all in. And you can usually kill them in those situations, but you do need to have a lair ready so you can morph overseers. Because if they see you going all in afterwards and they know you don't have a lair, they'll just make a dark shrine and then they'll counterattack with all the adepts and then they have DGs at home, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. Depends a little bit on like how well you clean it up, right? This looked like a pretty standard game. So in CVP, you should always go for a 20 Overlord here. If you this was a 14 hatch, I assume. Like with 14 hatch,
Yeah,
I think
so.
maybe just a normal 16 hatch. Maybe let's see the timings. Yeah, it's just a normal 16 hatch. So with this one, with the 14 hatch, I actually do 19 Overlord because you have the larva coming from the natural earlier, right? But with 16 hatch, you should always do a 20 Overlord. So this next one should be an Overlord.
Do you always make it in the natural?
The Overlord I always
Like
make here in the main
the-
base. Here.
Okay.
With the 14 hatch, I also make it in the main base, but I make it on 19 instead of 20 because you have a drone coming from here right on 20 supply, because this finishes a little bit earlier. But yeah, so 20 Overlord always in CVP, because now you're gonna end up in a scenario where you have to either cut larva or get supply blocked. Like if you make your third base here, you can do that, right? But then you're floating this larva. Like either way, you're gonna be floating larva, right? Which is something we
I'm
really,
too used
really
to
want
15
to.
hatch, because then I'm
Yeah.
fine doing it on like 24 or 25.
Yeah, so like here, like sure you don't float that much money, but it's still bad because this happens, right? Where you're floating a bunch of larvae for quite a long time.
Yeah.
We keep our scout here. We see the second chrono boost. We saw the first adept. So this is actually very good. You only made 2 links initially, but I probably would have made 4 links here if we chrono boosted the first adept. We'll see. So yeah, here, yeah, you see the first chrono boost. I would make 2 more links immediately, because if he pylon blocks you here, 2 links isn't enough to clear the pylon before the adept comes here. So
Oh yeah.
we need 4 links versus the chrono boost adept, and then we see another chrono boost. Here's a mistake where you're already making the links, unless you're planning on all-in here. But if it's reactive to seeing the chrono boost, it's too early. You should wait until the unit actually finishes, because if it's a stalker, we have no need for the links, right?
I think I saw on the minimap another adept shading out, and that scares me.
Okay, but this was the first adept. Second adept just finished now. So,
Okay, yeah, then I'm not sure why I did it.
yeah,
Usually it's
like
because I see more units coming on the minimap.
I think you saw the second chrono boost, and that's what triggered it, probably, would be my guess. So my exact response here, I'm just gonna go through it. It's just, I see the first one, I would make 2 more links right away, so I have 4 links total. I see I get the second chrono boost. My response in the second chrono boost would be to just start this queen immediately on 29. And then overload afterwards, and then drone, right? Until I see what comes out of this gateway. And when I see what comes out, if I see an adept and I see it shading out, then I would make 4 more links for 8 total. And at the same time, this overload would go into the main base to scout, like this and this. If it's a stalker, then we don't make more links, and this overlord stays here, right? Yeah, we also made this 4th queen a little bit early, so this should be after the overlord. Because again, you're gonna be in a situation where you're floating a lot of larvae, and this is like something you always want to avoid in the early game.
Yeah, this is a very cringe supply block right here.
Yeah, like even without the supply block, you don't have the money to spend the larva, right? Because you started this.
Yeah.
Like an overlord should be in production now, but you start this queen. So even if you did have an overlord here, you have no money to spend your larva, right? So yeah, this queen should start at 36 supply. So like when this overlord pops, that allows you this queen to start basically.
Yeah.
And then you start 1 more queen right away,
And I've
like
made
you're doing
so
here.
many links too.
Yeah, you made a lot of links, and again, this is a mistake, but it's not the end of the world, to be honest, because he's going to work anyways, right? So you can have a spore, but the biggest thing is just that there's like all of these drones that should have been mining already, that are now coming out. So you're already lacking a lot of minerals here. And again, yeah, like we talked about before, overlord positioning, very important.
And like right here, his third is really late. So this is when I'm
Yeah.
you know, scared of.
Yeah, so this is what I mentioned earlier. If I don't see a third base coming down at 4 minutes, I would start a Roach Warren right away. But here, like, it's hard for you to start this Roach Warren, right, because of how the early game went, and you're already floating 7 larvae, so starting a Roach Warren right now feels really bad.
Yeah.
Also, this 7th queen,
I've already
yeah,
put myself in quite the position.
Yeah, for sure. This 7th queen, I would also pretty much, I would only make this, the 7th queen, after I've, like, saturated my bases, more or less. Because you don't want to cut drones. Like, in the early game, you're cutting some drones for the queens, right? Because of very, like, crisp timings. But you do want to avoid it, like, that later down the line. So, like, I would never want to cut drones for my 7th queen. Like, I would probably delay my 6th queen, even if I couldn't spend my larvae, I think. Like, the only time I would really cut larvae, I think, is for the first 4, maybe 5 queens. But even then, it's kind of questionable. Ideally, like, you don't want to cut any larvae for any reason in the early game. It should all be speed drones right away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I could have probably been at 40 here, right? If I played it like I should, almost.
Yeah, close to 40. Like,
because I would have used the larva.
Yeah.
And a few less links.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're missing a lot of drones. And obviously, like, those drones are not only missing, they could have been mining for quite a while, right? So you're missing the money that they would have mined on top of that.
So I could have been on at least, like, let's say 6, 7 more drones if I played somewhat correctly. And then I would have also afforded the Roach Horn. It would have already been going down. And then this adept pressure maybe doesn't feel all that. Yeah,
exactly. So, like, yeah, I recommend 4 minutes. By 4 minutes, their 4th base should be started. If it's not, then you make a Roach Warren. And then we're also counting the gateway units, right? Here we only saw 1 Oracle. So right now, no 3rd, only 1 Oracle. Like, the 2nd Oracle should have already been on your part of the map if it was coming out, right? So this is where you're going to think, like, is it like an Archon drop? Is it 2-Stargate Phoenix? Is it 2-Stargate Carrier? Is it 2-Stargate Void Ray? Is it like a charge slot all in? Is it Adepts? That's all possibilities, right? So this is the moment where I would actually make extra queens, more than 6. But
and I should have sent in the Overlord, right? Already.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I see the double Adept.
Yeah. Exactly. But like in whatever their 3rd is late like this, making extra queens is always a good idea. Just because they'll be useful versus any all-in, and they'll also be useful in case they're going Skytos. Because those are the 2 options, really, if they don't take a 3rd here. It's like they're either doing some aggressive build or they're doing Skytos. They could be, in theory, I guess, like some fast RoboBay build where they go like Disruptor drop or something. Or like a
then the queens are kind of nice anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't see an early 3rd base, starting extra queens, assuming you have the money for it. In this game, I wouldn't start it just because like of our larva situation, right? But in a normal game where like your early game went well, you should probably have the money to start extra queens here, like instead of your 4th. Like normally at this time is when you want to take your 4th anyways. So instead of saving up for a 4th, I would just make more queens in this scenario.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so again, Roach Warren should have gone down. If you want to play Baning style like this, it's a little bit dicey because he could be doing like an Archon drop.
Yeah, and then I'm kind of...
Yeah.
Yikes.
Again, like versus this, it would be fine if you had Ling Bane, but it's also still kind of scary because if he splits his death properly, you probably won't have enough Banelings to actually like clear everything. So it's a little bit scary still, but it's holdable with Banelings at least.
Yeah, I think the lower MMR the Protoss, the better Banelings become.
For sure. Right. This is actually kind of good, like best case scenario for you, I think, because you don't have enough to defend this anyways, and now you actually get to find some damage. Yeah, but yeah, like as soon as you don't see the 3rd going down, your alarm bells need to start ringing, right?
Yeah.
You actually end up in a position where you're not completely dead, but you're definitely behind.
Yeah, this is usually how it looks. Like, even if it's non-committal adept attack with the third, or like usually adept attacks, I end up behind.
Yeah.
Even
Like, so, like,
it's gotten better since I started walling like this and having like a door or
Mm-hmm.
a drone ready to make an evo and stuff.
yeah. So like again, it's just about roach warren timing here mostly. And
Yeah.
you don't want to make any roaches blindly because it could still be Skytos, right? Like say he's making carriers, and you make a bunch of roaches, or it's Phoenix, and you make a bunch of roaches, you're gonna be real sad, right? But you do want to make
Yeah.
the roach warren, and then you just keep scouting, and when you actually see the move out, that's when you make the roach warren. So on this map, it's kind of tricky because you can't go down here really easily. But usually, what you want to do in these scenarios is you want to patrol links around this base in like a semicircle. So you see any prism or anything moving out, any prism, any
Oh yeah,
Stargate units, anything like that. Because like here, making units blindly can definitely kill you if they're like playing Skytos and you prepare for a ground all-in, right? Or the other way around as
Yeah.
well. So what you want to do is just you drone until you have like, if it's on two base like this, I would probably stop at like 45 to 50 workers at most, depending on my information, right? And then you kind of just hold your larva for a while there if he doesn't show his hand already, right? You spread links around his base to make sure you see anything moving out, and then as soon as you see something,
if
like
he's
as soon as you see
on-
the depths, then you make roaches, right?
Yeah. Like if he's on two base like this, you wouldn't go above like 42-ish drone.
Would depend a
Maybe
little
a
bit
little
on my
more.
information for sure, but it's like I would go to 50 probably, at least.
Okay.
But again, it all depends on what I've seen so far.
With
Like
a good
if I've seen
early
the
game.
Stargate, yeah, like seeing the Stargate already is a good information, right? They can't be like a super fast immortal or anything like that. So the Stargate allows you to go to like 50 drones, I would say,
Yeah. Okay.
for sure, at least 50 drones. And then as soon as you see the third, you're free to go to like 66 drone, take a third, and then depending on what you see after that, you add more and more drones, right?
Okay.
But I'll take a fourth. I mean, not a third. Yeah. Okay, like as soon as you see this move out, that's when you should roach warren should be ready, and now you make like you've saved up the larva and you've made enough overlords to be ready, and now you make the roaches. And if instead you saw like two carriers coming out, then you would just like drop a spire right away and make more queens, pull the queens through the front, maybe make an extra spore or two.
Yeah. So my lair should be done here too, probably, right? I don't think I've.
It should be on the way at least, right? Like it's also something like
Okay.
if let's say you can start the layer, and if it's like a Celatol in or something, you can always just cancel it, right?
All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because like I mentioned the timing before, right? Where 4 minutes is where we start Roach Warren, and like around like 4:40 or so, 4:30, 4:40, we want to start our lair and take 2 more gases.
Yeah.
And then from here you would play reactive. Again, like
Okay, yeah, that makes
just
sense.
seeing the one Stargate unit and seeing no third base should like put some pretty major alarm bells in your head. Just that something is weird. Again, sometimes you might be playing Protoss players that are like below your MMR, and then their builds just won't make any sense, and they're just like chilling, going double forge or something. But
Yeah, I've died to that a few times. Like I have a bunch of units on like 40 drones, and they just wait until 7 minutes and they move out with like 3 last time.
yeah,
It's weird.
yeah, but like, so
But
like,
yeah,
as
that's
soon
just
as
the lack of scouting.
Yeah, for sure. Like you should always get to some information, right? And seeing the Stargate allows you to at least like saturate the minutes on your third base, right?
Yeah.
And then you play from there. Yeah, like actually you're not in that bad a position. The problem is again our injects means that now we're missing larva again. We're starting to float money.
Yeah, they've all been fighting.
Yeah. Now we're kind of now we're kind of dead, right? We're at the drone counts. We were fine after the initial pull, I
Yeah.
think, even if it wasn't great because we did a lot of counter damage. But yeah, from this position, it gets really rough. But again, in games like this where he's playing low to no Stargate count, like it's only one Oracle. In games like this, you should feel pretty comfortable just going into like Ravaging Bane. Ravaging Bane is a really good composition versus ground for like a timing window before they get like a critical amount of Stormers or Colossus.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Do I ever want to transition that into lurkers, you think, at my level, if they make mostly ground? Or is it better to try to tech up to ultras? Or Because I
If-
know what the emote with the Broodlord means. I don't want to do that.
If like, to be honest, if you start off with Lingbane, I would just stay on like Roach Lingbane and try to all in with that. The only real
Alright.
transition would be Ultras if you don't want to play Broodlord, but to be honest, if you can get to a point where you can kill them with Ultras, you probably could have just killed them with Ravager Lingbane, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah, most of my games I recently have won with Neural, and whatever else I have.
yeah,
Some Ultras and just Neural.
like again, those compositions can work if the Protoss is lacking a little bit of control and like multitasking, and they like you get some neural off and it snowballs pretty hard. But it doesn't really work versus pure ground army if the Protoss is actually on top of things. But again, you're free to experiment with that as you want. But I would say like if you're in a game where you can kill them with Ultra Infestor, you could have killed them with Ravager Lingbane most likely.
Okay. Yeah. Don't make it overcomplicated. Just use the brick.
Yeah. The only other thing you can maybe do is like make a Spire and make some Mutas. If you have a really good early game and you feel like you got your drone count up really fast, you can make an early Spire, make like 7-8 Mutas, and then go into Ravager Lingbane from there. That's also viable.
Just harassment squad, clearing up war prisms. I like that. I do like that. So Ravager Lingbane and I go for like late mutas for map control and harassment.
I would not do it like if the game is already like you already have Ravager Lingbane out. I would do it like if you have a really clean early game and you got your drone count up really fast, and then you would just get an early Spire, and then like Spire into Ravager Lingbane.
So I still add the Roach Warren as normal. I just don't really make the Roaches. I get the Spire.
Yeah, like obviously you have to make a. This is like a thing where you have to keep scouting, right? To know like, okay, when can I stop making units without dying and save up for the mutas, right?
So if it was like the first game we watched where that guy was super turtle, he was just gonna sit back, that would have probably been a good idea to do that sort of thing then.
Yeah, for sure. And at the very least, like you can also keep scouting, right? And if they scout Aspire, you can like do the double mind game with like, okay, they start Phoenix, but then you don't make any mutas, and you can commit harder to the Ravager Lingbane, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a lot of potential to.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you want to play lurkers, I would just go like straight Roachling into the lurkers, like don't even make any banelings. Because usually, like if you already committed all the gas into banelings, that means that your lurkers are either you're already in a good position, so you have time to go lurkers, or you should have just gone lurkers to begin with, right? Because all you're doing if you're going,
if you want to go for it.
Yeah, if you go banelings into lurkers, you really just give the Protoss too much time to get ready for the lurkers, right? Because the lurkers also have like a timer on them in this matchup where they're very good for a while, and then they, like once they can transition to Skytoss, it becomes pretty useless.
If you don't make it scrappy or deal damage, they do feel really bad usually.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I think that's it for today, right?